Good afternoon and good morning, wherever you are in the world today. Welcome to the next edition of the Deep Crawl webinar series. As you know, my name is Jon Myers. I'm the host today, as always. And today we have a great topic and a great presenter to cover some great tips and tricks over the next hour or so. So today we are going to be covering data visualizations, tips, tricks for using Google Data Studio. And our presenter today is Samantha Noble, the founder of Biddable Moments. Thank you, Sam, for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
No, anytime. It's great to have you on. Looking forward to this as well. Sam has been working in search and performance media for over 15 years now and is a regular speaker and trainer at events all around the world. Awards judge, search personality of the year back in 2016, and more importantly, an absolute data studio wizard. So over the next half an hour, you're going to learn some great stuff from Sam. For you guys that have been with us before, or people that haven't been with us before, it's the usual format. We're going to be running with about 25 to 30 minutes of presentation, followed by obviously the questions and answers. And I'm hoping there's going to be lots of them about what we're going to talk about today. Please don't wait till the end to submit your questions. As you guys know, on the right-hand side of the screen, submit your questions via the chat box. We'll pick them all up as you hear something that Sam's talking about, and maybe you want a little bit more content and context about it. Pop the question in the box, and when the presentation side of this is finished, we can get into the Q&A, and I'll make sure I get through all of those questions and get those answers for you. As normal, we are filming the webinar and obviously recording the webinar, as you can see, as we are now. It will be live on the DC blog later on this week with a full lowdown, full rundown of everything that we talked about, the questions that were asked, the top themes, and also obviously a full recording available for you guys to download and listen back to at your leisure. At the end of this, there is the short survey as normal. If you guys haven't experienced that before, as you close the window, a little box is going to pop up and just ask you for the feedback. It takes about 15 seconds. And at Deep Crawl, we're really big on finding out what you guys think of what we're doing. Tell us if it's good. Tell us if it's bad. Tell us who you'd like to see on the next webinar. We tend to get a lot of that at the moment, kind of thing. You know, we want to strive to make this as good for you guys as we possibly can. And so please do take that time and 15 seconds of survey. So that's enough from me for the moment. I'll be back later on, obviously, for the Q&A section. So without further ado, I'd like to turn over to Sam for the next 25 to 30 minutes to show us all things Data Studio and how to visualize those data in powerful ways. I'm really looking forward to this one. So get those questions ready, and over to you, Sam.
Thank you very much. Okay, so my normal topic of presentation that I tend to use is it's all about PPC. And when I was asked to do this deck for Deep Crawl, I kind of thought, well, I wonder if I can try and do something a little bit different. And Data Studio is something that I've been playing around with for a couple of years now. And it's something that is really starting to take off within a lot of businesses and agencies alike. A couple of months back, I asked a load of people, how long are you actually spending on actual manual reporting, pulling together data from all the different sources, such as Deep Crawl, such as Google Analytics, Google Ads, Facebook Ads, all of the different platforms that you use. And the consensus was, on average, people were spending over 3 days a month actually pulling in data manually from all these different sources and popping them into Excel spreadsheets. And what's interesting with that is humans actually make between 3 and 6 errors every single hour of every single day. So when we combine that, that's a possible 126 errors to be made each month within a report. Now, we all remember what reports used to look like. Like we had Excel spreadsheets and we'd try and make them look pretty. We'd try and jazz them up with different colors and different formats. And the whole thing is extremely time consuming. Like the amount of times I've put together reports and I'm trying to pull in all these different data sources. And then you go back and think, where did I get that number from? And it's just not the way to do things now. So back in June 2016, which, blimey, that's a long time ago now, Google launched the beta version in the US of Data Studio. In 2017, so this had been rolled out for a while, 2017, they decided, okay, well, this is actually working quite well. We are going to remove the limit that people can create in terms of reports. So before, you used to only be able to create 5 reports. So you could have 5 if you wanted one report with lots of different connectors pointing into it. You'd be limited to literally 5 reports a month. Now, that removed in September 2018 after that 2-year beta testing period ended. and they moved over to letting everybody create as many reports as they like, as often as they like, and all of the different Google data sources are free to use, and then other third-party connectors have come into play where we can actually pull in data from a whole host of different sources. So why should we use Data Studio? There's a few different reasons. First of all, it is free. It doesn't cost anything. So even if you start to just automate your reporting from one platform alone, it's not going to cost you anything. It only starts to actually attribute a cost once you're having to use a third-party connector to pull in data from other sources that are not owned by Google. So like we might want to import data from Facebook ads, therefore there's a small fee that gets accrued with that, which is paid to the third-party data source connector. So for the vast majority of the time, it doesn't cost us anything. One of the biggest things is the accuracy. Like, it completely mitigates human error, and the data will continuously update. So like, you can set it up and you can look at live dashboards, so you can see how your website, how your marketing campaigns are all performing for you, and you can see that live and on the fly. One of the reasons that I like it from a PPC standpoint, for anyone that is doing PPC, is within any paid advertising channel, there are conversion windows. So conversion windows will mean that somebody can click on an ad and then they've got a certain amount of time before they can convert, and then that data gets backdated. So in terms of the accuracy, this is amazing because it will backdate all of the data for us. It saves us a huge amount of time. Like, if we go back to the start there, I was saying a lot of people are spending around 3 days a month on manual reporting. That mitigates the need for that. And most importantly, it allows us to visualize data. So a lot of people will want reports in a template in terms of a table. Some people might want it as a graph, a bar chart, pie chart. Some might want it in red, green, black, blue. And this platform allows us to customize reports to allow us to actually see data in a visual way and actually make decisions off the back of it. It allows us to share the data, so we can create reports and dashboards and we can share them across teams. They're completely protected so that people can't edit them unless you want them to. And it allows other people within the business to actually see how website data is performing, so that you're all kind of singing off the same hymn sheet. And then finally, it allows us to connect all of our different stats from a whole host of different sources into one really simple and easy to use dashboard. Now, there's a caveat to that, in that there are hundreds of different connectors, and Google are adding more and more of these every day. Lots of third-party connectors are being added. But there is a caveat. Obviously, the platform is only as good as the connectors that are pulling the data in. So if you are unable to see a connector in there for a platform or a system that you're using, you can take the data out of that and you can pop it into Google Sheets. So it doesn't mean just because there isn't a connector there that you can't use it. Take the data out of one platform, pop it into Google Sheets, and then you can use it in the same way as everything else and import the data from Google Sheets into Data Studio. So seeing as we are doing a deep crawl webinar, I just wanted to talk briefly about the new deep crawl connector that has been released. Now, I'm not an SEO and I don't pretend to be. I understand it. I've worked in SEO a few years back. And this was actually super helpful for me from a perspective of the PPC clients that I work with. So not just for SEO. Now, one of the things that you need to do, so when you're coming in to start using the deep crawl connector, is you start off creating a report. You'd search for the deep crawl connector and click it. And then in here, you'd need to go back into your deep crawl account, generate an API key, and then you need to connect that within your account in Data Studio. So you pop all your details in there. Once you hit next, it does pop up a few extra boxes. Now, all you need to do is click through and change these to say recommended, recommended, recommended. And it basically will allow you to then pull in data from all of the different metrics and sources that Deep Crawl have got. And then you'll be able to actually report and see that data in a really nice and easy to use template. So I will just show you some examples now of what that looks like. So in this example here, we can, if you're an agency or a brand where you've got multiple projects that you're running, you can set it up so that you can say, right, I just want to see a snapshot of how all my different projects within the Deep Crawl platform are performing. So in here, we've got project name, how many pages a website has got listed, and then how many broken pages there are. So you can see as an overarching, oh, how is all of the websites that I'm looking after performing. The issues data element, so once you've actually clicked through into here, you can also create another one. So you can look at report name and you can look at total, and the report name will list out all of the different errors that you've got within a particular website and how many errors there are. And again, if you don't want to necessarily share your deep crawl reporting access to a client or to your manager, you can pull the data into Data Studio, and then you can share it that way. And then finally, you can get access to all of the tasks that are set up in the account. So if you've got a specific task that you've added, you can actually pop the data in there, and then it will automatically pull it in. So again, Data Studio can work as kind of a task flow management system for you as well. Now, if you want to compare different crawls, so you might have crawled a site once and then you want to crawl it again and you want to see what the difference is. You might have spent some time optimizing the site and fixing some errors. You can run it to say, compare this crawl to the most recent crawl, and it will show you whether there is a difference in terms of errors, and you'll see the percentage change in the bottom of the actual template there. Now, the guys over at Impression have written a really good blog post on how to use this connector, and they've also shared a couple of dashboards. So I've popped the link in there because I think it's definitely worth going and having a little look. And as I say, it's a free to use dashboard that they've created, so you can just pop your details in and get access to that. Right, so how do we use Data Studio? I'm going to assume that some of you have sort of had a play around with the platform. If you haven't, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to encourage you to do that at the end. But I just want to give you a few tips that and sort of tricks that we can use within the platform that until you've actually started playing around with it a little bit, you'll notice there's a few little things where you think, oh, I wish it could do that. And then you'll come along and think, oh, you find a way that it can. So I've learned about all these different things along the way. So I'm going to start off by sharing just a few simple formatting features that are within Data Studio that you may not have come across so far. So the first one is formatting columns. When this platform first came out, it didn't have the ability to centralize data within a table. So you used to have to sit there and try and make the tables all look properly. And you also couldn't actually resize columns. So columns would, well, you could resize them, but you'd have to do every single one individually. Whereas they've come up with a workaround for that. So this is what we can see here. So all of the different columns are all different sizes. Now, I'm quite picky and pedantic when it comes to design. And there's one thing that I hate more than anything is when I'm looking at graphs and tables where everything isn't aligned with each other. So if you right click on the data, you right click on that table that you've got in there, click on resize columns, and then you can choose fit to data or distribute columns evenly. And then you get everything looking a lot more simpler and sort of easy to read than what you had before. The other thing, as I mentioned earlier, was center aligning columns. Now, this is quite hidden away if you don't know where it is. So whenever you first create a table, the data will always get aligned to the right. If you click into the table and then click on style in the top left and the top right hand side of the options over there, and then scroll right the way down, it gives you the ability to change the alignment of a column. So you can go left, right, or center, and you can do that for all of the different columns. A report level filter is something that has been an absolute requirement in all of the reports that I put together. So there's certain filters that I like to put at the top of my report. So in this example here, I've got the date and I've got device. And if I didn't set a report level filter, I'd have to apply those filters to every single page in my Data Studio report. So what you can do now, if you click on both of them, right click and then make report level, every page and subsequent page that you create thereafter will have those filters listed at the top. Next one in terms of formatting is drill down with data. Again, this is something that came out a little while back now, but not too long ago. And it is super, super useful because in this example here, we can see, right, we want to see how our traffic is performing across the world. But then you want to hone in on certain areas. So in that example here, I've clicked over in the US, and then I want to click down to a different state. I can then click down, and then I can actually see the different towns, cities, and regions that are performing within a particular state. So previously we weren't able to do that, whereas now we can actually set the drill down, and it's completely up to you how you segment that data. You just set the drill down and then you go through from that end. Now over on the right hand side here, I've put the examples of how you would actually go about setting that up. We can share some of this data at the end as well. So if you want to get access to any of the slides, because there's quite a lot of explanation on how to do things in them, then we can share them. But as Jon was saying earlier, there will be a write-up as well that's going to be pretty detailed in terms of what's being shared today. Optional metrics is another area that previously we had to just have one single graph, and you'd be like, right, okay, here's my graph for page views, here's my graph for impressions, here's my graph for checkouts, here's my graph for transactions. So you'd have to have lots of different ones, whereas now what we can do is we can have optional metrics. So we start off our graph with one particular metric, and then we can have a drop down right in the right hand corner there to say, right, okay, well, I've looked at that data. How does that data compare against another data set? And you can decide which data sets you want to choose within that particular graph, and then you can apply those. This is the way that you go about getting that set up. So again, we will share this at the end, but the main thing that you need to bear in mind is this optional extras drop down here. Once you put a dimension in at the top and then your metrics, if you click on optional metrics, everything else that sits below that is the other ones that are actually going to pop up. Next up is calculated metrics and fields. So some of the metrics are obviously only as good as the data that we can import. So when we're looking at data being imported from, say, Google Analytics, we can kind of import all of the different metrics and dimensions, but there's always going to be something in there where you think, oh, I wish it could do that. I wish I could see the data for that particular sum that isn't actually currently reported in Analytics itself. So Data Studio came up with calculated metrics, and I'm just going to share with you a couple of the most common ones and most frequent ones that I'm using. So in order to do these, the first thing that you have to do when you actually add in a data source, you come through to this screen, and you can constantly get back to that by editing the data source. And in here, we can see a long list of all of the different metrics and dimensions that are being pulled in from whatever data source it is that we're looking at. If you click in the top right-hand corner on add a field, that is where you can actually start to create your own calculated fields. So some simple calculations, and one of the first ones here is, okay, I've got two types of goals. I might have my phone calls and I might have my emails, and they're currently reported as two separate goals. But for me as an advertiser, they are both equally as important as each other. So what I can do is I can amalgamate those goals by saying simply goal 10 plus goal 11 equals my combined calls and emails. We can also transform, use the transform format so that we can actually standardize the text, like the amount of times that we're all using UTM tracking for certain sources or campaigns that we're running. And sometimes the medium will be written in capital letters and lowercase, a mixture of everything, some with spaces, some with question marks. And in this example here, we can say, right, wherever we are seeing a medium, we want to make sure that that is always in lowercase. So even if it's not reported like that within Google Analytics, when the data is then getting imported into Data Studio, it will then look for every medium that has got the same functionality in terms of text. But if some are capitalized and some are not, this will change it, and then it will group that medium together, which makes your reporting a hell of a lot easier to sort of work with. Next up, we've got regex. So there's going to be certain things like when you're looking in search query data, this particularly works well from PPC. When we're extracting the data in terms of what people are actually searching for, there's a lot of the times I'm working with content teams and saying, okay, well, these are the types of questions that are being asked prior to someone searching and then clicking on a PPC ad. And I want to see them all grouped together. So I can create a regex that says, regex match, why, how, what, when, who, where, and so forth. And it will then combine all of that data from that one table and say, right, ignore everything else and just show me the stuff that has got those types of terms surrounding them. And then that just gives me a nice predefined list that we can then send over to the content team. These are the types of questions that are being asked. Can you go and write some content to kind of facilitate those questions? Another thing that we can use is something called case statements. So in this example here, like when you're looking in analytics and you've got all of the different countries, certain businesses will treat certain countries and certain areas in different ways. So in this example here, I've said, when the country is the United States, Canada, or Mexico, then label it as North America. When it's England, France, and Germany, then label it as Europe. And that way it will take all of the data from those specific countries, group them together, and then just rename them for me nicely so that they're in a format that's nice and easy to understand and relevant to the audience that are actually reading the reports. Next up is replacing dimension text. So sometimes when you're pulling data in, this particularly happens within analytics, you might be pulling some data in and the field name or the dimension that's in the data just doesn't really make any sense. Like this often happens with things like the days of the week where they label them 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or month numbers where it's 1, 2, 3, and so on. So what we can do in here is we can say replace, add type or month or day of week, and then we can write what it is. So we can then say 0 equals Monday, and then it would just update it so that when you're then looking at the data, it's a lot easier to understand what day of the week goes with what. And then you can see that data set in there. A super useful one, which is a bit time consuming, but it does actually work really well when you're looking at reporting, is ways of actually annotating graphs. Now, this isn't a feature in itself as yet, but I think this is something that's on the cards for the next sort of however many months time. But it would be, we've always said it would be really useful if we could then pinpoint on a graph and say, right, on this particular date, this Google update happened. On this particular date, the site went down. On this particular date, we relaunched the new version of the site. All of these different key events that we're all tracking within our Google Analytics account within Annotations, but not necessarily including within our reports. So we can see the annotations here. But what we can do is we can create a calculated metric to kind of act as a workaround for that. So you can see in this example here, I've got all my clicks, and then I've put a one calculated metric that's related to the billboard going live, and another talking about when the website relaunched. Now, the way that we go about creating that is you would come into your calculated fields, and then you would create a case statement. So in this example, I've said case when day equals, and then it's the year, the month, and then the date, then 1 else 0 end, which sounds really gobbledygook and load complex, but once you put something like that in there, that's when it starts to record. So the only thing that you need to change in there is the date, and then you name the calculated metric to whatever thing has been launched on that particular day. Now, when you then append that into your graphs, so you come in here, you pop it into the graphs, and then you have to go into the style section within Data Studio. So you'd come in here and then you'd say, right, my core data is a line graph, and then every subsequent annotation that I've added is going in as a bar chart, and the axis is going to appear on the right. And then once you've done that, that data then appears in here. One of the real benefits of using calculated metrics is they cannot mess up your original data. So whatever data you're importing into the platform, if you are making tweaks to it within a calculated field, it won't adjust anything in the actual back end of the data. So you're free to sort of play around with calculated metrics, and you're not going to mess up any historic data that you've currently got in the account. So a few bits in terms of performance monitoring then. One thing that I've been playing around with more recently is target tracking. And I think that's one of the things that platforms like Google Analytics don't do very well. They don't allow us to specify for a specific month or week what is it we're actually trying to achieve. We've all got targets that we're trying to kind of meet on a month-by-month basis, and they will fluctuate depending on seasonality trends and everything throughout the course of a month. So what you can do within Data Studio is, again, you can create a calculated field that allows you to list out all of the targets. So you might have a calculated field for targets in terms of organic traffic, direct traffic, paid traffic, conversions, revenue, all of this stuff that you can then populate in. And then you've got a nice graph at the end that says, right, this is what we were trying to achieve, and this is where we're currently at. And you can see that then calculated out across the whole of the year to see how far off you are in terms of hitting any targets that have been set. So come in, create a calculated field in either the way that I showed you earlier, or once you're in a report, you can come down and click on add a field. And we simply need to create a case statement. Now, I say simply because there's a slight caveat to this that can be a bit hit and miss, and you have to play around with certain things. But effectively, a case statement is starting with the word case, and then you say when something equals something, then change it to this. So in this example here, I've said when the month index is 0, which is January, Then add 165,000. When the month index is 1, then add 155,000. And this is going to be my SEO session targets for the year 2020. Once you've done that, you can then go through. Now, the problem when I say with the caveat is sometimes it's really hard to know how Google are formatting certain things within their data. So we know that month index means month, but what we don't know is what format do they use when they're actually writing the month. Is it 0? Is it 00 and then the year? Like we're not 100% sure on what that is. So if you're not sure, you can click into a metric, and we can say here, right, in this example, I want to see how month is formatted. If I click on the little pencil icon there, it tells me that year and month is formatted as year and then month. And that's how I would then go back and retrospectively add that into my calculated case statement. So once you've done that, you can then see your target or your Google budgets or your costs aligned against a graph that actually then shows where you're at in terms of target and performance. Customer reviews is another one, like Google My Business, particularly if you are working with a brand that has got a lot of different Google My Business profiles, can be an absolute minefield when you're trying to pull in data from those. Now, annoyingly, and I'm not sure why, Google My Business is the only platform that Google own that they have not included for free within Data Studio. So if you want to import data from Google My Business, you will need to use a third-party connector such as Supermetrics, and then you'll be able to pull that data in. I've got no idea why they've not actually made that one free when everything else is free, but hopefully that one will come in due course because it's a really useful import that you can have. So once you import this, you can see so much information, including the customer reviews that are being left. Now, this is really important from a whole host of different perspectives. Like you need to know that your business that you're working with is actively responding to any positive and negative reviews that are coming on Google. Additionally, we can use it to understand the context around what people are saying, the wording that they're using. And as I say, we need to use Supermetrics or a similar platform like that to hook this up. But once you do that, you can see all of this information in one super useful and easy to use dashboard. Now, we've got a whole host of different things in here. We can see how many people are viewing the map, how many people have clicked on a phone call action. Are there any local posts? What's this quarter's results like compared to previous quarter? We can see what our star ratings are. We can filter the dashboard to say, right, show me all of the customer reviews that have been left in the past month that have got a star rating of 3 or under. And then when you do that, you can actually look at what that comment is and see whether the brand owner has actually responded to that comment or not. Now, the other thing that's really useful from this perspective, and we use this within PPC all the time, is we try to understand the sentiment behind what businesses' customers are saying. Like what type of wording are they using? If it's an e-commerce business, are the customers talking about postage and packaging? Are they talking about delivery, or are they talking about shipping? Those little glimpses of information that you can take out from how your existing customers are actually speaking, you can apply that data into your content or your PPC ads or your meta, any of the key things that you're trying to kind of encourage somebody to click. If you use the same sort of language that existing customers are using, you will see a massive uptake, particularly with PPC, in terms of the performance that you get off the back of that. So a couple more bits here then. We can use the Data Studio platform to again import from Google Analytics, and we can see our website speed data. So we can pull in all of the different types of information. And again, from a PPC and an SEO perspective, this is super useful information. Like we need to be able to understand a certain pages of the site, pulling down the overall performance of a site. Like PPC in particular, if a website is really slow to load, then you get penalized massively for your PPC campaigns and your costs go up. So it's quite good to be able to understand and see what popular pages are in terms of which pages are loading the fastest, which countries are loading the fastest, and then also which ones are loading the slowest, so that we can try and address those and make sure that we're actually sending traffic through to pages that are sort of nice and speedy. If you don't work in PPC and you work in SEO and you've got access to any PPC data, this information is really, really valuable. And it's where PPCs and SEOs really need to work together a bit more. Like the amount of data that we can get as a PPC person that should be shared onto SEO is huge. And this is one of the reports that is very, very useful. So it's called the Auction Insights Report. And what it allows us to do is look on a month by month or day by day or week by week basis, and we can see which competitors we are overlapping with in an auction. So we can see for a particular keyword, for a particular campaign, or for the whole account, of all of the keywords that we're bidding on, which competitors sit within that auction. And it would list out loads and loads and loads of competitors. And then you can sort that by overlap rate. So at the top here that we can see that Audley Travel in this example overlapped with us the most in February 2020. And we can say, okay, well, we're sort of aware of that one as a competitor. But then if you scroll down that list, you might then uncover other competitors that you weren't necessarily aware of. Again, we use this quite a lot in PPC for that perspective, but also if you are running any brand campaigns, any brand PPC campaigns, you can see whether there are any other advertisers that are bidding on your brand. And I think even from an SEO perspective, that's super important, because if you're getting brand traffic and people are searching for a brand and then seeing a competitor ad, there's every chance that that person could actually click through on the competitor rather than coming through to your organic or paid listing. So you don't just have to see this data in a table, you can also visualize it in a graph, which for me is a lot more easier to read and digest. So in this example here, we're like, okay, well, what on earth happened in August 2019? Like there's 2 new competitors that have come into the marketplace here. And this information actually alerted us to the fact that there was a new competitor, and it was something that the brand weren't necessarily aware of. And we sort of brought that to their attention, and then they went and sort of did their due diligence to see what that particular brand was selling and how they were marketing themselves. So it's a good way to just understand whether there are any newcomers into the market that you weren't necessarily aware of before. So a couple of final bits then before we wrap up and we can go to Q&A is looking at a few different resources and learning materials. If you are new to Data Studio, when you first start using it, it can be daunting, but trust me, once you start to understand how it works and the kind of time savings that you can get off the back of using it, you will hands down never ever go back to manual reporting again. It is by far the most cost-effective and time-saving tool that I've ever come across. Now, a few different things that you can use. So as with everything within our industry, there are so many different people that create these really cool community templates, and you can just come in here, browse through the gallery and just see what other people are doing. Like they will open source all of these templates for you and just get a feel for the types of things that people are doing and see what the possibilities are within the platform. You can click into it and then you can use the template yourself and just import your own data, or you can just take some ideas from it and go and create your own. Featured templates are the ones that Google have said, yep, these are the ones that we think are kind of core templates that we want to push from a Google perspective. So you can come in here and look at all of the different featured templates. And then you've also got some standard templates that are related to SEO, to PPC, that Google have sort of created and open source for us to get access to as well. If you don't follow this guy, he's called Lee Hurst, Helpful Lee. He has this brilliant resource where you can come in here and kind of search for all different types of resources. So whether that is that you're looking for new templates, blog posts, all different things that are in here. Everything in there is related to Data Studio, and every time he finds a new resource, he pops it in so that we can all kind of get access to that. Another person that I tend to follow is Michael. So he's on how_Eli, and he writes loads of really cool posts that go way more advanced in Data Studio than I can be, because he's really technical. But he's a really good guy to follow as well. There's a free icon set that these guys have created, so you can come in here and sort of copy paste some icons, because I think icons help to make data and reporting a lot more visual and easy to understand as well. And then finally, on that standpoint, in terms of learning, I've got an online Data Studio course. So if anybody does want to get access to that and learn some more stuff about how to sort of set up reports and take your manual reporting and put it online, then you can use the code DECRAL and get 50% off my online course, which I've popped in there for you. So a couple of final words then. If you aren't using it yet, please do. Like I guarantee you, although it's going to take you some time to begin with, just to kind of get your head around how it works, once you've got there, I literally don't put together any reports for clients anymore. Everything is fully automated, and at the end of the month, I can look at all of the data, summarize what the data is showing me, and then report that into the client. And they've got full access to all the reports as well. You can sign up to Supermetrics. So if you are trying to, as I say, import data from other platforms that aren't Google owned, you are going to need another connector. So Deepcrawl, you obviously need a Deepcrawl account for, but if there are other ones such as Facebook ads, Pinterest, LinkedIn, MailChimp, a whole host of other platforms that are out there, then you're going to need a Supermetrics account. Start moving all your manual reports to automated, save yourself hours of time. And that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you, Sam. Informative as ever, loads of great content, and we've got loads of questions, which is always a good thing. So all the content has sparked the questions, and I'm going to always, like I always do, as on these things, I'm always going to start with the first question that always got asked, and right back at the very start. Yoav asked the question, how can B2B SaaS companies utilize Google Data Studio?
In exactly the same way as any other company. So every business, regardless of whether it's B2B, B2C, have got a website. You've all got back-end CRMs where you're trying to understand whether your customers are, what your customers are doing. Are they signed up? Are they logged in when they come to the platform? All of that data from all of the different sources can be pulled into Data Studio. Additionally, as a tech platform, if you've got people that are logging into your website and using a tool similar to what Deepcrawl have done, the biggest recommendation that I can put is to build yourself a connector and open source that to your existing customers and any new customers that come on into your kind of customer set, because the more people are using your platform, the more likely they are to continue using the platform. And if you've got all of that data reported in one sort of really easy to use dashboard, then you'll find more people will start using the platforms as well.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think that quite ties in quite nicely to the next question, which Samuel asked as well. He just said, what are the best tools to connect with Data Studio apart from Deepcrawl? Obviously, I'm happy to help you with that one, but I like to put the question out there, but you maybe not so genned up on the SEO tools that are out there. But is there any that spring to mind, or would you like me to jump in?
I know that there's a couple, but I'm going to get you to answer that one, because in terms of tools, that's really not my strong point for SEO.
No. I mean, you're for the Data Studio, the wizard at that, and absolutely. I mean, Samuel, in response to that one, the other SEO tools that I would probably shout out that have done a really nice connector are Ahrefs have got a really good connector via Supermetrics, which Sam mentioned. SEO Monitor as well. They do a nice connector. They've got about 3 or 4 different connectors they built direct into Data Studio. And probably just the other one to shout out as a bit of a more rounded kind of SEO platform is obviously SEMrush. You do a bit of everything, but obviously have some SEO stuff in there as well. So they are probably the main ones that'll to come out there. Looking at the next question, then Julian Scott just kind of said, where can I get some good free GDS templates for PPC, SEO, social, etc.? That was kind of asked earlier on. You obviously showed off a few resources at the end. Is there any other ones that you would want to add to that? Or?
No, I think Helpful Leads list is really extensive. I think there's over 800 different resources in there now for Data Studio. But if there is something really specific that you're looking for, just simply search on Google for whatever it is you're looking for, Data Studio template. And there are a whole host of different people that might have written a blog post, and Lee might not necessarily pick that up yet. So it's Google's your friend when it comes to sort of looking for templates, for sure.
Or many things that we all search for in the world today. A quick one here from Tola, which is, when using Data Studio and Google Search Console, do you know how to update the format for average ranking positions when comparing over a period? So basically what they're saying here is, as ranking position reduces, in the sense obviously you go higher on the rankings, it's obviously a good thing. Mm-hmm. And it should be a positive green arrow. However, it shows this is a negative drop, and it's red.
Yes, I do know how to fix that. So over on the right-hand side, if you click into the graph or the table that you're working with, click into it, and over on the right-hand side, just go to Style, and then you can look within there and it will show your up arrow is currently shown as green and then your down arrow is shown as red. So you just flick those around for that one particular table, and then it works.
There you have it, Tola. There's the answer. So then next question from Lee. How do you recommend UTM/GA tagging for paid social ads for easy comparison against paid search campaigns when pulled into Data Studio?
Okay, so for all my paid social campaigns, I always use UTM_source equals Facebook, or if I'm separating out the campaigns and running ad sets for Instagram and Facebook separate, then it will be Instagram. But predominantly, if I'm lumping everything together, then I go with Facebook. And then UTM_medium equals paid_social is what I personally use. In order to get that data into Data Studio, you would then, obviously your medium is then the differentiator between CPC and paid social. So you can literally create a report based on medium. Or in Google Analytics, you can create yourself a new marketing channel grouping. So you can then say, I don't want, if it's CPC, that is purely just my PPC traffic. But you add your new medium, which is paid_social, and then you can then rename that as paid social, and then it would just categorize paid social in a completely different channel for you within your dashboards and everything as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Sam. A couple of questions from Stephen Vilverde. First one, and obviously you've just gone through this experience recently, Sam, as well, obviously for the presentation. Do I need to be a deep crawl administrator to generate an API key?
I don't know if you need to be an administrator as such, but you definitely need to have a deep crawl account.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether you need to be an admin or not.
No, not at all. You just basically, Stephen, you can just, if you've got a deep crawl account, if you log into your section and click on your name, there'll be a drop-down menu that pops up, and then you can do API access via that, and you basically generate the API key via your account name. And Stephen also asked as well just whether we can send out the link to the Tech SEO dashboard. Can it be sent out on an email after the webinar, please? So I think for that one, Stephen, we can, Sam talked about some of the templates and the dashboards from a Tech SEO perspective that you can generate. We can send you a link probably out on the follow-up email. The marketing team at Deep Crawl can put in a link to the dashboards there. So it seems like we've got a bit of a theme here for everybody wanting to get their hands on templates and dashboards by the looks of it. So another one from Yoav is basically, do you have any recommendations for date formatting to match the way that Google sees dates?
Yeah, so that's similar to what I was talking about earlier with regards to how you can, I can't remember what statement it is that you now, I think it's the replace statement. So you can create yourself a calculated field that says replace X with Y. So if you've got the month where it's saying the month is 01, because Google's months go from 0 down to 11, for whatever reason, days go from 0 to 6. So they don't make any logical sense when you're actually looking at reporting. So you can create a calculated field that says replace 0 with Monday, replace 1 with Tuesday, and then it will literally override all of that data for you within Data Studio. But in Google Analytics, it would keep it the same. So you just need to understand what the metric is and how they're writing it, and then what you want to replace it by. But all that's possible.
Amazing. Fantastic. Right, where do we go next? There's so many questions I've got to choose from here, which is fantastic. So thank you for all the questions out there, guys, and a couple of you feeding back on a great presentation. So Vincent's asking the question around creation of a Google Data Studio report. He wants to build a report that is for the section of his website, for example, just the service and then the service sub pages. How do I pull in only these sub pages to avoid pulling in data from all of the pages of the website?
Okay, so if you're just creating it for the one, if you want it for the whole report, then you can create a report level filter in the same way as what you would do when you're going into Google Analytics. If you're looking at pages by a particular format within a URL, then you can search for that. So you use the filter functionality either at report level or at table level. So let's say you've got your table here, click on it again, and over on the right hand side, you can go into style and you can go into data. Within the data column, if you scroll right down to the bottom, it says apply a filter, and you can go and free type in whatever that filter is. So you might then say page equals, or page contains / sub 123 / and you know that all your service pages are sat on that. That will then only report on data from that particular section of the site.
Perfect, thank you. Just a question from Rajesh, just asking, he'd love to know kind of thing, what is sort of best practice for yourself when you create sort of weekly and monthly reports? Do you have a certain way that you go about it, or do you find that, you know, every report's kind of bespoke to a client, but do you have kind of like a way that you go about from a best practice point of view generating those weekly and monthly reports in a Data Studio template?
Yes, so I have a couple of different templates that I've got that sit over here. That I've got one for lead gen clients and I've got one for e-commerce clients. And kind of broadly speaking, I split between the two in that way. And I've got a template that I've spent however long creating that I can then just take a copy of that. So Data Studio works in a similar way to what it does with Google Sheets or Google Docs, where you can come in, create a copy, and then you can just adjust the data sources that are going into it. So I have a template that I've got that I can then overwrite with new data. Annoyingly, because Google Data Studio adds so many new features all the time, it's like one of their newest toys. Every month, a load of new stuff comes out, and it makes you want to then go back and retrospectively change how you report. If you've already created all your reports and you've got your templates all set up for your different clients, you do then have to go back one by one and change them all. But in terms of actually how I then go about communicating that, so I've got in all of my reports, I've got monthly data, weekly data, quarterly data, annual data, comparing for the previous period. So annual's obviously looking at previous periods, previous years, showing that in a table and then in graphs. And then the other thing that I always have at the very start of my reports is I've got a blank page that I can free type into. And that's where I kind of put a little summary of how that particular month has performed, and then the following month the next summary will go below that and then below that. So yeah, there's no other real formatting as such other than I just ping the link to the client and say don't forget to check out your stats, and 9 times out of 10 they're actually using them. That was my worry to begin with. Am I going to go and spend all this time creating these reports and then find that nobody actually looks at the data? But they are all using it, and a lot of clients have actually stopped doing weekly board meeting packs where they would go and print everything out, and they just have everything live on dashboards on screens now, which is cool.
No, which is fantastic. I think it's interesting. You just made a point there about the client accessing it via a link. I think maybe just a question for me to expand on that as well is, can you you say when you give a link to the report, yeah, can you protect it? And also, can you kind of secure certain areas of the reports as well? So could you give a certain member of the team a link to a certain report, and then maybe the manager a link to all of the reports, and so on and so on? So like levels of access.
That's one of the things that needs improving a little bit, if I'm honest. There are ways that you can protect different reports. Now, I tend to have a few varied levels of reports with different links. So I'll have one type of report that will go out to the marketing team that want every little bit of information and they need to understand all the minute detail. And then I have other reports that will go out to senior management and then up to sort of founder director level at the top, because the director and the founder of a business doesn't necessarily want to know how many impressions have we had. Like, they want to know top level detail. How much traffic have I had? How much money have I made? So I tend to split reports out in that sense so that certain bits of data don't get seen by the wrong people as such. The only other way, the best way of actually protecting the data is to only share the report with certain email addresses. So that way you can then, and when somebody gets that data, they can't then create a copy of a report unless they have edit access. So it's kind of locked down in that way. They can't start tinkering with any of the data unless they do have edit access. But I think one of the things that would be really helpful for them to do is us be able to say, right, this report, this sheet, this sheet, this sheet, and this sheet is all for that group of people and that here, which they're not quite there with that yet.
No, I think that'd be a really handy thing to have, definitely, as this starts to expand more and more, and with, as you're seeing, and I think a lot of people are seeing, is how much Data Studio is now getting used in big organizations. I think there'll be a lot of ask for that for sure. Just going back to regex, obviously regex is really powerful, and you gave a great example of how you can build the regex stuff. Medi's just asking, can you give a simpler explanation of regex? So, you know, what can you really use regex for, and how powerful is it, and can it, you know,
okay,
what's your view on that?
Let's say you are running paid advertising campaigns on Pinterest, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on Google. And you want to, and so all of your different mediums are set up and all your different data sources are set up. When you're looking at that data in Google Analytics, you might then say, well, okay, I want to see how I've got my organic SEO traffic. How is my paid search traffic versus my paid social traffic performing? So you might want to lump together Pinterest, Facebook, and LinkedIn as an example. You could then use regex to say regex matches the source of Pinterest, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and regex matches paid social. And then what it will do is then lump all of that paid social traffic into one table. So then you can compare the two. Other ways that you might want to use it, what else could we use it for? It's hard, isn't it, when you're trying to think on the spot for uses of it. You might have, say, a load of referring domains that are referring URLs that are pointing traffic into the site, and you might want to just look at the main domain. So you could then say, right, okay, I want to merge together this domain, this URL, this URL, this URL, and this URL, and then report it as one. Regex would allow you to do that.
Fantastic. No, fantastic examples. Well, that's it. We're out of time. We're 50-minute session. We're flowing through those 50 minutes. Obviously, a massive thank you to you, Sam, for being involved and giving us your time and giving us all these amazing insights. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
No, thank you. And obviously a big thanks to all of you for tuning in again and getting involved in the webinar. We know it's sometimes in the UK and Europe, it's a little bit later in the day and you guys need to get off and do things, or you could be on the West Coast American, just waking up and getting involved with everything that we're doing. As I mentioned, the webinar is recorded and we will have it live on the DC blog later this week with all of the content, all of the questions, everything that Sam's talked about, and we'll make sure we'll get those templates and everything posted in there for you guys as well, because it seems to have been the theme of the Q&A. Please, please, please do fill in the survey at the end. As I say, it's really important for us at Deep Crawl to get that feedback, the things you like, the things you'd like to see, and the presenters that you'd like to have on. Our next webinar, I normally announce our monthly webinar as, you know, who's coming next. Our next monthly webinar is a little bit different in November. This is what I'm going to call the big one. It's been on your screen now for about 15 minutes since Sam finished presenting. On the 18th of November, we are doing something called Deep Crawl Live. This is something we've never done before. It's 5 hours of amazing sessions, from panel discussions to technical SEO deep dives within Europe, and 5 more hours in the US as well of the same things. This is all going to be intermixed with some amazing global keynotes from some of the most amazing people out there. I mean, I'm incredibly excited by some of these people, and I've been around this industry for a long time. So we have people like Brian Solis, who is one of the most well-known marketing thought leaders out there, ex-Salesforce leader, going to do a fantastic keynote for us. We have Ben Legg, who is the former COO at Google, who's going to be telling us a lot of things around what Google have been up to, and obviously in his time there. Sophia Noble as well, for all you organic guys out there and you people that love delving into that algorithm. She is a best-selling author on algorithmic search engines, so another one to tune in for. And Mr. Scott Brinkler, Mr. Chief Martech himself as well, who is the VP at HubSpot. So some amazing keynotes. We've got some amazing panel discussions on technical SEO. We've got some amazing marketing discussions to come for you all. So CMOs, SEOs and the like, please do tune in and get involved with that one. Book your tickets now on the link that you can see on the page at the moment for Deep Crawl Live. I'll certainly be there, and there'll be some great people there on the day. But we're out of time. Thank you again, Sam, for being involved. Great session on Data Studio, great tips and tricks, and thank you again for giving us your time. My name is Jon Myers. That was Data Studio and visualizing data in all amazing ways that you can. Thank you for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you all on our next Deep Crawl webinar. Thank you.